Call to order of the Alexander County Board of County Commissioners. I was about to be at the wrong place. For March the 5th, 2018 at 6 p.m. And I recognize Vice Chairman Josh Lale for our Pledge of Allegiance. And I will be doing the invocation.
Please stand.
I'll do the invocation first.
Oh, well, he's been.
Father, Lord, thank you for this day, and Lord, for the blessings that you've given, for the opportunity to come back, Lord, today, and for our meeting tonight. Just pray that you bless us with wise decisions that would move Alexander County forward. We also pray that you'd protect our county employees, especially our EMS, the EMTs, those who put themselves on the line, the Sheriff's Department, Fire and Rescue, and Highway Patrol, Police Department. Be with all those, and Lord, just protect them as they do their jobs of protecting us. Lord, we pray that you give us direction, that we might move Alexander County forward economically and retail and growth and jobs and business. Lord, the things that we need the most. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for your protection again. Pray that you protect our schools, Lord, with things that are going on all around. Lord, we know it's in your hands. Lord, I pray that you direct this meeting tonight. Give us a safe journey back to our homes when we're done, and we'll give you the praise for it. Amen.
Face the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this time I'd recognize any commissioner that might have a commissioner report.
Chairman Reese, yesterday I attended the Award of Honor for Jack Hoke, and several of you were there. That was a very prestigious event for Mr. Hoke. I had the honor to serve with him on the school board for 6 of 8 years, I believe. And he has an endless supply of resources and people that he knows in the state of North Carolina, and I think it benefited our county greatly. And, you know, his thumbprint is on our county for many, many reasons, and certainly want to honor and respect him. Great event, well done by the school system, and just a nice Sunday afternoon to recognize somebody that made a difference in Alexander County.
Thank you, Chairman, or Mr. Chairman. Does anyone else have it?
I certainly echo those same thoughts. It was an honor to work with Mr. Hoke all those years, and a very fitting celebration yesterday, giving him certainly some honor and attention that was definitely due. Also, had the privilege of being with the health board the other night, and you know, I mentioned it last month, but the telehealth and some of the things that they have going on is just really amazing. And I think that our health department is certainly a good local little gym that's does a lot of things. You know, you wouldn't think that they got the dental clinic and they have, you know, drug screens. I mean, just on and on and on things that they do and they're capable of doing, and the services that they provide. And then we had a really good DSS meeting as well. A lot of people getting some services. I know that's a contentious area a lot of times because of the nature of their work, but you know, some really good things going on there too.
Thank you, Commissioner Peel. And also, I was able to attend Mr. Hoke's event yesterday, and was real good. And like I say, he has done a lot of things for Alexander County for a school system, and I was actually able to serve for 8 years with him on the school board, and very good, you know, top-notch thing, and good for our county. And also I have a report here from Alexander County EDC. Some pretty good news. Appalachian Regional Commission awards $1.5 million. This is to Alexander County for the industrial road extension. And it's like about a half a mile of road, and it's connecting NC 90 to the White Plains Road. This will give some access for Paragon Films, Craftmaster Furniture, the Liberty Reload, and our newest tenant that's working on being there is Borealis Compounds. So good event here. I know as far as the rest of the board members, we like to see money come in, and when it's free money, there's zero match on this. And this was really kind of piloted by our EDC, working with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments, and Sherry Long always does a great job for us here in Alexander County. Just want to make each one aware of that, and that's a good thing. And will help us out, with the building and businesses there at our industrial park. If there's no other commissioner report, we'll.
Mr. Reese, if I could just add one other thing, not necessarily a report, just a kind of a hearing, so to speak. A lot of buzz in the community about the possibility of the internet project. There's a lot of excitement, and just hearing a lot of good, positive energy along those lines with other economic development issues that are going on. So I think we're doing some great things, and they can't never be fast enough, but they're definitely making a lot of impact.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Peel. And we are setting on, think of a lot of good things and some things that's going to have already happened and some going forward. So we can be thankful for that. This time, I'd entertain a motion for the adoption of agenda. Everyone's had time to look it over.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, being none, I'd entertain a vote to approve the agenda. Raise your right hand. All in favor? All right, unanimous carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Next event is number 1, our public comment. Has anyone signed up? All right, thank you. Number 2 will be our public hearing, rezoning case 18-1 for Hayes. I'd recognize John Pilkington, and I guess we need to go into a public hearing.
You can open the public hearing now or wait till after I get done, either one.
Okay, we'll just wait to get finished.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the board. Tonight you have rezoning case 18-1, which has been submitted by Baxter Hayes for BMGC LLC. This property is the current Brushy Mountain Golf Course property, as well as an adjoining parcel of land to the west that is also owned by Mr. Hayes. You'll recall that in November, the applicant had applied to rezone the property from an R20 and commercial recreational to RA20. At the time, he was planning on developing it as a planned residential development, which would have been more in line with a multifamily townhome type development. But since that time, he has determined that the economics of it would be better suited for it to be zoned residential single family and developed as a small lot subdivision. The residential single family zoning district allows homes to be built on lots as small as 6,500 square feet, so long as there is water and sewer available to the property. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on February 1st and was unanimous in their recommendation that this property be rezoned from what is now currently zoned RA20 to the new residential single-family zoning district. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. And let me add, just for legal purposes, their request to recommend it be approved was based on the fact the rezoning is consistent with the future land use map and 2008 comprehensive plan, and also consistent with the goals and policies that were adopted in the plan, and that the request will not negatively impact the surrounding with regards to residential development. So essentially, he's just changing the type of development he's doing. He still wants it to be a residential development.
All right. Okay, I guess we need to open the public hearing first. I'd entertain a motion to open the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we open public hearing concerning the rezoning case 18-1.
Okay, have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor of opening the public session, raise your right hand. All right, unanimous carry. Public hearing's open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak from the floor? Okay. Any commissioners with additional questions?
I don't have a question. I think it's exciting. I mean, we've not had subdivision started here. I guess Cornerstone was probably the last one, maybe, in what I call the Taylorsville Township.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this could be really significant. So, thank you, Mr. Hayes, for considering doing this.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, one thing I would say with the business I'm in, being real estate and construction, there is a need for new housing. If you ask any real estate broker about the market, they will tell you that there's more demand than there is supply. And that doesn't necessarily mean every house, everything, but basically there's a serious need for desirable housing. And there's always a desire for new construction. And so I think this is as good a time as there's been in a long time to be looking at doing, this, and I think it'll absolutely have a positive impact, even compared to what could have been done on RA20, because the higher densities don't seem to, they definitely don't hurt, in my opinion, and it allows for more to be done.
Most people now are expecting a higher density, and I've actually lost sales of properties because my lots were too big. So a lot of retirees, they want smaller land areas to take care of.
Yeah, I'd comment too, the same thing. I thank Mr. Hayes for having the vision to do this project here in Alexander County, and it's a great thing. It's like I say, it's been a while since something like that has went on, and I think it'll be good for the county. And homes bring people, and people bring buying things. Probably some of them will attend some schools in the area, our CVCC and our elementary schools too. So a lot of things there, good vision. And if there's no other questions, no other comments, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Certainly commend you, Mr. Hayes, on your desire and your vision to do some really good things. It's much appreciated.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bill. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, have a motion. I have a second.
Second?
Okay, we'll have a vote. All in favor of closing the hearing? Raise your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Unanimous. Okay, I guess next thing, we'll entertain a motion to approve the rezoning.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve rezoning case 18-1 for Baxter Hayes for Brushy Mountain Golf, I don't know his course, LLC. But anyway, and I make that recommendation based on the facts that the rezoning request is consistent with the future land use map in the 2008 comprehensive plan. It's also consistent with the goals and policies adopted in the plan. And it also is, the request will not negatively impact the surroundings with regard to residential development.
All right, have a motion, to have a second.
Second?
Okay, all in favor, vote raising your right hand in favor. All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Pilgrim. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Moving on to item number 3, I'd recognize Brandon Kell and David Eisenhower for Paragon Films.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, it's my privilege tonight to be able to be a small part of another announcement for Paragon Films located in the Alexander Industrial Park. I have a signed application and a letter of intent from Paragon to proceed with a project that will result in a new investment of about $10 million and 14 new jobs. So we're very pleased to have Paragon continue their string of success and expansions in Alexander County. And just as a quick background, Paragon first came to Alexander County in 2005. They purchased a 40,000 square foot shell building in the industrial park at that time. Again, it was a project between the railroad and Alexander County government. That building was later expanded by 60,000 square feet in approximately 2009. So the company has continued to grow, and we are just, as always, very happy to see continued employment opportunities for citizens. In 2010, Paragon hired a young Alexander County native named Brandon Kale, who has just graduated from UNC Charlotte with a mechanical engineering degree and was trying to decide what to do with his life, and he came across Paragon, and Paragon is very fortunate to have found him. He worked his way up through the management trainee program, and he's now plant manager at our local facility. So I'm going to let Brandon come up and give you the real details of this new project and where he is at the plant and maybe some future plans. Brandon,
All right.
come on up.
Good evening.
Dean?
Good evening.
Just kind of a refresher for what Paragon is, just from a reminder standpoint. We make stretch film. So if you go to some of the people we sell to is Amazon, Lowe's, anything, basically any truck you see going up and down the road and it's got plastic wrapped around it holding stuff to a pallet, that's what we make. If you go to a Lowe's home improvement and go back to the carpet aisle, you'll see a roll of one of the products we make because we've got a big deal with Lowe's sitting back there to wrap up people's carpet with. So just kind of an idea of what we make, who we sell to. Our North Carolina facility, we're looking at several million pounds a month of plastic going out the doors, sending it out to customers. So we've got, Paragon as a whole has 3 different facilities. We have one here in North Carolina. It's the second plant that was put in. The home base is in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And then 2013 timeframe, we put in a facility in Yakima, Washington. So we pretty much cover coast to coast currently. And through that time, Paragon's seen a lot of growth. The current project that we're looking at is additional equipment here in this county for our plant to add on roughly 30% more capacity to our plant. The main reason this is needed is currently my plant stays sold out for the bulk of the time. We cover basically the eastern seaboard up into Pennsylvania, New York, those regions down towards Florida. And we can't make it fast enough, it doesn't seem. So what we're looking is basically add new equipment that's going to allow us to increase our productivity by 30% as far as what we're able to send out. We are currently in the process of looking to get things moving and start this installation process. Our goal would be in May to be able to actually start up and get the ball rolling. This does, as David mentioned, will add 14 jobs to our plant and to the county. And these jobs basically consist of maintenance positions, shipping positions, as well as production positions. And those range from operators to lower level production positions as well. As far as when we start hiring, right now, if all goes as planned, I'd like the end of this month to start adding employment to the plant so we can start training them up and having people ready to go once that line starts up and we're good to go with it. So that way we're not behind the curve on trying to figure out how to operate versus having everybody trained up and ready to work. As far as future, for Paragon, we constantly strive to be on the cutting edge of innovation and provide the highest quality films possible to our customers. So we just continue to look for whatever new technology is out there, invest in it, and be able to keep up pace with all the competitors. So looking forward to what's coming our way.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good information. All right, moving on to item number 4, recognize our county manager, Mr. Rick Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have a project ordinance and several budget amendments. The project ordinance is for our project, our long-awaited project in downtown. It is the Alexander County Office Complex renovation project. It's for $2,340,500. Generally speaking, it's for construction and renovation costs, which is $2 million of that, professional and technical services, which is $125,000, and technology cost, $215,500. And that's the project ordinance. Budget amendment number 36 is to budget for the Wild Ones Natural Landscapers Seeds for Education Grant for landscaping at the natural play area, and that's a small grant, but it's a budget amendment. Number 37 is to budget for payouts for vacation, holiday, and comp time pay for employees leaving during the 2017-2018 fiscal year. Budget amendment number 38 is to budget for closeout for the Applied Technology Equipment Project and transfer the remaining cash balance of local funds back to the general fund. Budget amendment number 39 is to budget for the closeout of the Applied Technologies Building Renovation Project and transfer the remaining cash balance of local funds back to the general fund. Budget amendment number 40 is to budget for the closeout of Rocky Face Park Expansion Project and transfer the remaining cash balance of local funds back to the general fund. Number 41 is to increase the solid waste fund expenses for cost of tipping fees that are greater than the original budget, to decrease solid waste fund revenues that are expected to be less than the original budget, sell of fixed assets, to increase solid waste fund revenues that are expected to be more than the original budget, which comes from white goods, and to budget for general fund transfer to assist with the solid waste fund revenue and expense budget adjustments. Number 42 is the budget for general fund transfer to the capital project fund for the county office complex renovation. The county is also adopting a reimbursement resolution, which is the next item on the agenda, to declare the county's intent to reimburse itself for project expenditures if the county decides to finance the project with bank loan proceeds rather than use the use of fund balance. Are there any questions about the project or the budget amendments?
What a
Mr.
good
French.
information.
With the original purchase price of the building, what will be our total cost in that building and the square footage?
It's a little under 20,000 square feet. The bids will be discussed in just a little bit. Are you asking for a breakdown of the cost?
Yeah,
That
we
way?
can do it then, but
Okay.
I was just trying to get the cost per foot.
Okay.
A little over $100 a square foot.
Any other questions, concerns?
Not real sure, as this has been a kind of an ongoing piece. Is this kind of where we thought we were going to be?
I think so, yes, sir. Again, the cost, the price, the overall project cost is more when you add other elements. You add profession, yeah. And the technology piece of it, which is also added to it, which is over 200,000, which includes things like cameras and cabling and phone systems and things like that.
Commissioner Peel, I think when we looked at buying the building initially, yes, these are bigger numbers than we were expecting at that point. Because just to tell it like it is, at that point, if we knew we were going to be in the neighborhood of where we are now, I don't know that the purchase of the building would have taken place. being, being forthcoming.
Kind of makes you wonder what the real value of the roof and the walls are that are already there. I mean, if you go vertical, $142 a foot. I mean, would you be as well off if you had a blank slate? I mean, it's a little bit of sticker shock. I mean, and maybe I live in a delusionary world, but that's a big number. It's a lot of money in an old building. And we all thought the building at its purchase price was a good buy. I think,
Yeah.
I think, but this is a little sticker shock to me.
Well, materials have gone up significantly, and labor,
Yeah.
since we made the offer on the building. So, I mean, you know that.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, but they haven't, they haven't doubled.
No, but we were figuring on being over,
You
over $100 a square foot.
Well, we had it rebid, the original bid, what was it? It came in at more than,
The estimate was.
Yeah, the
Wasn't a bid-
estimate was
Wasn't a
more.
bid, but it was an estimate.
okay, but the estimate was more than what we were looking at here. It was,
Well, we didn't have the other items at
Okay.
that time either.
but that's pretty much everything
It is.
that's gonna be going on.
It is.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna do a building, we need to do it to where it's functional, and where it meets its purpose and does what our intent for it is. I just was not aware of what our projection was whenever we started the project, but it's a lot of money.
Well, I think we kind of went into it also with knowing that the building was there. It was an empty building. It was in the town. The county was looking for a place to where we could kind of consolidate. So, hopefully this will, it will get everyone into town, pretty much make it more convenient for, some of our citizens, so. But I never thought it would be this long of an event and, this much money, but there's been a lot of surprises that I've had since I've taken this seat. But, I think it's, something that will be good for the county.
Well, and we're at a point, in my opinion, certainly just my opinion, that, we've got a big old building and we're not doing anything with it. So we need to get something going on it and make it functional.
Okay, any other discussion or questions?
One other question I would ask, just because I'm that guy that asks these questions.
That's good.
Are we in this building, are we getting what we need? Then when I say what we need, I don't mean what we need the day we move into the building. I mean what we need to look 25 years down the road. Now, I understand there may be growth and and I'm not saying that every department that's in there would have all the space they need and, I'm not meaning that, but,
You're asking if we're gonna be able to use this building 25 years from now for basically the same purposes as we are today?
and is it, is it,
Or are we gonna have to build another one?
no, I mean, yes, well, yes, is it gonna give us what we need for the future? Without much required, changes, renovations, that, because when this first came up, one thing we talked about was, the space needed to be flexible. And I don't feel like it is, just being, putting it out there. It's very, I mean, not saying the plan's, bad by any means, but it's very much what we need right now. And, you know, I just want to make sure, you know, I hope, and I just want to make sure that we're doing the best thing we can do. Because I know how much the members of this board, I know how much we've squawked and complained trying to save $30,000, let alone, you know, over $2 million. And, you know, because that's, I still look at everything in tax, you know, property tax form, and I say, hey, $2.3 million is 9.5 cents on sale, 9.5 cents of the entire county's property tax for 1 year, which is over 10% of the Alexander County tax revenue, you know, for a year. So this is, I mean, this is a major purchase.
Well, one way,
What was the original cost? I apologize, I do not recall the cost, the purchase price of the
350.
350.
One way to look at this is that a couple things are going on, well, more than a couple things are going on, but for example, the Register of Deeds office, and tax office have been in the building they have been since, I guess, the 80s. You're relocating those offices into that building. You're moving building inspections, zoning, environmental health, recreation, greenway, from the facility they're in, which is really during the wintertime is not heated very well. It's a tough building to work out of, and that's where people that want to do building go to get their permits. So you're moving them out of that facility into a new facility. You also are moving ag extension and soil and water out of the building they were in, which they've been in for a number of years, into this building, which will actually give the health department a chance to expand, which is something we've wanted to do for some time, but without actually expanding their building. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm not sure, I mean, it gives us certainly room to grow some. You know, I don't look at some of the departments will change very much over the, you know, next 10 years. I'm not sure, 25 years. But it gets us all in one location, so it makes it far more convenient for citizens to go sort of one-stop shopping, can go there and get all their permits and do all their business there. It'll also give us a place where we can have some meetings. It's not set up for commissioner's room, but there's space there that you could meet if you wanted to. There's parking. It's in central, it's in downtown Taylorsville. So I mean, there's pluses.
Well,
And I know it's a lot of money,
yeah,
but again,
I know.
there's stuff you have to add to it. I think as was stated earlier about technology and things like that you add back to the building. So.
Well, and I think everyone would agree, the reason we looked at buying the building in the first place was to relocate all these departments that are in substandard buildings, you know, across the county. If you live in Vashti, you get to drive, 40 minutes to sign your child up to play soccer. You know, and you can't do it online. You have to go in person.
Sure.
And I mean, I get it completely. I mean, that's what we were trying to do. And I don't think it's a question of whether we should do it at all or not. I think it's more a question, it's just, my question is, are we doing the best thing we can do, absolute best thing we can do, with the money? That's my concern, because, like Commissioner Campbell said, $146 a square foot. I don't know what McGraw Hill's saying right now, that may not be correct, and I'm sorry, I was just quoting Commissioner Mayberry.
Yeah, I think my number was wrong anyway.
But, you know, I don't know what McGraw Hill is saying average office space is, you know, with the location factor for, you know, where we are. But, you know, considering we've got
135.
okay, 135 basically a square foot. You know, when we, I think those of us, and we may have been off thinking that, okay, we're buying a building and yes, it's gonna need some renovations, but basically we're just sticking in interior walls and a floor and some, you know, an electrical and HVAC and lights. And we've got, you know, and it's just, hey, we're at 2 point, you know,
All in, you're 2.7 when you do the purchase.
yeah, all in, we're at $2.7 million, which is a lot of money. And
That was my question, was where do we think we was gonna be when we started? I was just curious, so I didn't.
Total.
I think we were, you know, I didn't know technology was gonna cost us 215,000, but we're not far off from where we talked about. Am I?
That's
I mean,
correct.
we were
You're
pretty
correct.
close to
That's
where we
correct.
talked about.
We had the architects make a presentation. Remember, the estimate was a little over $2 million.
2.5 or
Yeah.
2.6 or something, was I remember.
Kind of feel like the dog that chased the car, we called it. Now what we do with it,
Yeah.
to be totally honest.
chew
I
on the
mean,
bumper.
I'm not trying to be adversarial, but I was all in the 350 purchase price, and maybe it was a little delusional, but
Yeah.
I do have some heartburn just with 2.7, because I think I've made the comment, what could you build ground up out here in this government complex, you know, for that same $2.7 million, not to say you go out and sell the building, because it probably sat there forever. It's a former bank building, so it's a limited use facility. Again, it's just doesn't feel like we got a whole lot for our really nice brick walls and our roof that's up there. And I guess that's just maybe the nature of the beast, but I'm not as excited about this as I was when we purchased it. Kind of like owning a boat.
Yeah.
You're happy
You
day you
never
buy it,
are.
you're happy day you sell it.
I've never bought a boat.
Yeah.
But
But we have.
we have it, and we need to make it functional
Yeah.
because
Yeah, we
it's,
have
Let's
it.
give us
so-
450.
yeah, unless someone wants to give us $450 for it. But we have a big facility and we have a great plan for it, and. you know,
I think it's gonna work out good. We're not
I mean, I
far
think
off.
it's gonna be,
We're not far off the numbers where we
And-
talked about, and I know you're having sticker shock because this is the first big
Yeah.
purchase you guys have been on to make. So, but I've got one other question. As far as management, I mean, I want an honest answer here. Do you think that you're gonna be able to manage the departments a little better without having them scattered around?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
because I know we got
You're
issues
not
going
going to
on with all
have
different
departments
ones at all
out
times.
in Wittenberg, and you'll have everybody in one spot. Certainly be advantages to do that.
And there's no argument that we firmly, I think we all agree that several departments in, you know, within the county government more than deserve and/or need a new facility. I have used the restroom at the old Wittenberg School where there's no heat, when it was
Right.
honestly maybe high 40s to
Right.
50 degrees
And you have
in the
people working,
restroom.
you have people working in there.
You know, and I mean, I understand, and I'm not, like I say, I'm not trying to argue that,
It's just
you
a lot
know,
of
that
money.
we should, you know, it's, I just, yeah, I just, my only concern, and I'll say this and then I'll be quiet, is I don't necessarily think the building is going to be suited for employees 25 years from now I think it's much more suited to employees now than it is for employees 25 years from now, because millennials, which are now, you know, the largest segment of the American population, they, you know, they see the world differently. And if you, you know, there are reasons, and some of this applies and some doesn't, there are reasons that real estate brokerages are, real estate offices now are one open room with like, with little tables and like a high bar kind of thing. And these 20-something-year-olds come in with their iPad and their, or their tablet, and and there's Wi-Fi, and that's, and they sit there across from their peers and they work. And, they don't want a private office because they want to be around, they don't want to be closed in a private office, and such as that. And I say that, and I don't want to characterize all millennials as being that way, but I have done some research on my own not for this, but for work pertaining to office setup and office culture and all kinds of wild and crazy stuff, because I get to deal with real estate brokers on a daily basis. And that was my concern. And that's the only.
What, you guys are construction people, I'm not, but what's a building of this magnitude cost to just build per square foot?
I'd say, it varies significantly from, are you talking about, a metal building?
The brick,
A metal building or, good example. I remember Bethlehem Baptist Church, and we're building a new facility. We could have built the same square footage and it'd been much less expensive than what we're doing. If we had done, hey, we're gonna put up a square metal building and hang a sign on the front, versus we're doing, it's conventional construction. It's brick, it's block and brick and poured concrete and metal framing and, heavy steel more architectural, and it's just, guy said, and if I can remember this correctly, guy said to me one time, there are three things you need to consider when you're talking about building anything. It's how big, how much, and it's how big, how much, and how nice. How big's how big, how much is how much, what's your budget, and how nice, well, if you answer two, the third one's answered. Because, if you say this big and this nice, it's gonna tell you how much it's gonna be. And, so I don't know what,
You'd have to ask, that's not in my,
it's not money.
it's not what I do, so.
And I think the commissioners, whether it's sooner or later, are gonna have to deal with this same thing again pertaining to another building that's downtown. Because, we keep trying to Band-Aid, keep it alive because it's a huge, huge thing.
You're not gonna build any cheaper or not much cheaper than what you got right now. Am I right? No. You're not,
You've got a deal.
yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think we all were just 350s, to make a good number, I guess.
He's talking about on the
He's saying the bid.
construction costs, the overall price
The bid.
of the product, the bids, everything, all in. I think we're pretty good price.
Steve's been doing most of the
Yeah.
I just understood that Rutherford Electric bid a project just went for $311 a square foot.
Yeah.
This project, office building. So this project has been looked at, and we've tried to make sure we were keeping costs in line. And Steve will present you some information.
Same, we didn't build it in 2008.
Well,
No, it'd been better in like
Yeah.
2010, because that was really that was when people were trying to give away stuff.
But I think we're in good shape.
Well, I can't say I haven't had some heartburn, but just as Mr. French and some others have talked, when you look at the whole picture, I think it's gonna free us up on the health department that's gonna be some expansion that if we looked at having to build something strictly for them, we'd be looking at more expense on that end. And, you know, it does get everything convenient, you know, into town. But
And-
I'm kind
and
of like y'all, I always like cheaper is always better, but
Yeah.
it doesn't happen much.
I'll say one other thing too, you know, that building is right in the middle of Taylorsville. It's sat there empty for years. It was an eyesore. You know, that's another good thing that we're doing here. We're reclaiming an eyesore and turning it into something good, so,
That is, it has a lot of parking. I think that's one of the things that,
yeah.
And
that you could value, and you have fairly level parking, because I think about people that have to enter some of our buildings presently. There's steps, there's inclines, declines, things like that, which quite frankly are a liability.
And,
As
and
well
one,
as the
and
money.
one thing, another thing that we need to keep in mind, and this is me saying this to myself too, you know, we're gonna free up these other facilities, one being Old Wittenberg School, which is a good-sized piece of property on a, you know, and that property should be marketable. You know, I don't know how much we can get for the Register of Deeds office. But, you know, if we can free up Old Wittenberg Elementary and, you know, generate some revenue to offset the cost of the new building, I mean, that's just that much better.
Well, the tax office register of deeds building might could be used for something else. We're releasing space. Something else might could be moved into that property. So,
All right, well, I guess we're
Healthy
getting down.
discussion, no doubt.
Well, you know, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing, and we
Yeah.
want to discuss it out in the open,
Mhm.
and, you know, everybody's got concerns, but I understand anytime you spend this amount of money, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. But I think we've vetted it pretty good over the last couple of years, and, it's not where everybody, you know, we want dirt cheap, and I feel like we're getting a pretty good price based on how materials and labor have gone up over the last couple of years.
We don't want cheap, we want inexpensive.
Inexpensive.
Sometimes
I'm
it
gonna-
happens, sometimes it don't.
Yeah, cheap
Yeah.
is not good. Inexpensive is a good thing.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve project budget ordinance number P-3 and budget ordinance amendments number 36 through number 42.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
this is interesting.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. I was wondering there for a minute. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? We've pretty much done it in, I think, but. No discussion, it's come time for the vote. I'd ask for a vote by raise of right hand. All in favor?
Reluctant, right.
Any opposed?
We just wanted to see them squirm.
That's what I tell you, you guys don't have much hair left already.
I'm just kidding.
Thank you, gentlemen.
$7 million,
Motion carries unanimously, and I realize that's not an easy amount, but I think it'll be something that we can look back and see where the county moved forward a little bit with the building. Okay, we got through number 4. Let's move on to number 5. reimbursement resolution for the Alexander County Office Complex renovation project, and I'd recognize County Manager Rick French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the reimbursement resolution that we've talked about. This will enable us to reimburse ourselves, go back and, at the end of the project, if we want to borrow the money, we can do that, but we'll need to pass this resolution. If you choose to not to do that, there's no harm in doing it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the reimbursement reimbursement resolution for the Alexander County Office Complex renovation project.
Okay, have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. I'd entertain a vote of approval. All in favor of approving, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, moving on to number 6. Comes to the part everybody's been questioning about. I think recommendation on bids for bank building renovation. And I'd recognize Mr. Steve Walker from CBSA Architects. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Steve Walker with CBSA Architects. I have with me Mr. Sills from our office and Jeff Herman, who was the low bidder from Hickory Construction Company. So what I would like to do is distribute the bid tab.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you all very much for the opportunity to work on such a fine project. Such a worthwhile project. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Everyone has a bid tab now. It's just a little bit larger. I know the one in our book was a little small.
The larger's good.
The letters, I mean, yeah, not that, okay.
Yeah, we can see them a little
Yeah,
better.
All right.
when you
so
get old like me, you gotta have that.
We were looking at a $2 million project, and I'll go back to the summary of how we fall within that $2 million budget. We originally had 11 bidders, 2 of which dropped out. We had Garanco from Pilot Mountain, they dropped out. And we also had S&S Construction out of Greensboro, and they dropped out. But we had 9 bidders, and you can see by the spread of the numbers that they all pretty much bid on the same project. So you had Brushy Mountain Builders from Lenore, you had Green Construction out of Boone, you had Hickory Construction, the apparent low bidder from Hickory. Then you had Matthews Construction out of Conover, Moss Marlowe out of Hickory, Neal Construction, also out of Hickory, Simcon Company out of Mount Airy, WC Construction Company out of Winston-Salem, and Wilkie Construction Company out of Lenore. We had the usual pre-bid conferences. We had several opportunities for the subs to come and look on 2 occasions. The activity on this project was good. And once again, as you can see by the numbers, they all fall pretty close to each other. So, the bids that you see, the base bid does include allowances for things like site work, general contingency, masonry repair, things like that, that will kind of plus and minus as we get into the job. I can answer further questions about that if you'd like later. So you just take the base bid from the contractor with all the alternates, and does include all the contingencies. You've got a base bid plus alternates of $1,649,800.
Okay, you add that to our fees of $125,000. That brings you to a number of $1,774,800. You add a 10% contingency on that, on top of the general contingency that you might have. That's another $177,480. So that brings the total less than $2 million. That brings it down to $1,952,280. So that's the summary of the bids. That's how the low bidder, Hickory Construction, their numbers works out. Once again, it's below the $2 million that we were working for. So with that, I can open it up to any questions you might have.
Okay.
On the alternates, it says there that number 6 was removed, the security cameras, can you elaborate on that?
Alternate 6, the security cameras are being provided by
IT.
our Alexander County IT group.
Right.
with the computer system.
So that's part of that
Yes.
technology.
It's still part of the project, just
Yeah.
Still part of the
done a
project,
different way.
yes. So that's part of that that technology, $215,000 on the budget amendment, I assume.
So pretty much that's pretty solid as far as what we would be spending. There is going to be some incidentals, but you'd say it's pretty close to 1.9.
Yes.
Should be.
Like I
Should
said,
be
you've got the
everything.
contingencies in there, which you like to have on an existing building, because a lot of times when you start digging in the ground and you want to add, footings for a folding partition, or you want to dig outside to get a ramp in for another exit, you don't know what you're going to hit. So,
Okay.
you have to have contingency for those kinds of things.
All right.
What's the estimated time frame once the project commences?
It's about 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. But we'll work closely with the contractor to make sure that we set a notice to proceed that works with all the ordering of materials and that kind of thing, so that, we don't run into the end of the job and run into problems.
Thank you.
So,
And they did the renovation on the Applied Technologies Center, or Hickory Construction did.
yeah. So Jeff Herman was the project manager on that job, too, and that was a nice, smooth job, and this has been a nice, smooth job so far.
Very nice job, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions from any commissioner?
Do we need to vote on the,
Yes.
on this tonight?
Yes.
Who to accept? Okay. I will make a motion that we accept the bid from Hickory Construction for $1,649,800.
Including all alternates?
Yeah, including all the
All the
alternates.
alternates. Okay, have a motion.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None being, I'd entertain a vote of approval with raise of the right hand. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, everyone unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, board member. All right. Next item of business is the resolution declaring the opioid crisis a public nuisance in Alexander County and supporting legal action. And I will read that resolution. Resolution declaring the opioid crisis a public nuisance in Alexander County and supporting legal action. Whereas the National Institute on Drug Abuse reports that in the late 1990s, pharmaceutical companies reassured the medical community that patients would not become addicted to prescription pain relievers. Therefore, healthcare providers began prescribing them at much greater rates, which led to widespread distribution and subsequent misuse of these medications throughout our country, as well as our Alexander County. And whereas the National Institute on Drug Abuse further reports that more than 90 Americans die every day from opioid overdose, The misuse of and addiction to opioids is a serious national crisis that affects public health and economic welfare. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates the economic burden of prescription opioid misuse alone in the United States at $78.5 billion each year, when considering the cost of health care, lost productivity, addiction treatment, criminal justice involvement, and whereas Alexander County is in the midst of an opioid crisis that is taking an enormous toll on its citizens and families, as well as impacting law enforcement, emergency services, and health and human service departments with significant demands. And whereas the number of children entering foster care in Alexander County continues to increase yearly as a direct result of substance abuse by parents, and whereas the physical impact to Alexander County related to health care costs, jail administration, and incarceration, emergency services, child welfare, and public assistance will likely total millions of federal, state, and county dollars. And whereas the human impact of this epidemic on parents, spouses, children, siblings, and friends who have witnessed and experienced the addiction by a loved one and/or loss of life is beyond measure. And whereas many units of our local government across the nation are considering or preparing to bring lawsuits against pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors in an effort to hold them accountable for their role in the opioid crisis. And whereas the NC Attorney General is working with a bipartisan coalition across the country in an ongoing investigation to evaluate whether these manufacturers and distributors have engaged in unlawful practices in the marketing and sale of opioids. And whereas such investigations are a precursor to litigation, which could be an appropriate avenue for recovery of damages, now therefore be it resolved that the Alexander County Board of Commissioners declares the opioid crisis a public nuisance, which must be abated for the benefit of Alexander County citizens. Be it further resolved that the Alexander County Board of Commissioners supports the state of North Carolina's involvement in the bipartisan coalition of the majority of states across the country investigating whether pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors have engaged in unlawful practices in the marketing and sale of opioids, recommends legal action to be taken and compensation be sought by the state of North Carolina on behalf of NC counties if unlawful practices are found and determined, instructs county staff to monitor the ongoing investigation and evaluate its effect on the Alexander County with consideration for the possible hiring of legal representation to handle any litigation the county may pursue. I would make this as a motion. Do I hear a
Second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the resolution?
Definitely a public nuisance and a problem and an epidemic. And anything we can do to educate and help and make a difference in this regard, we would be, in my opinion, just morally obligated to do all that we can. It's sad.
Yes. We attended a leadership conference in Raleigh back, I guess it was in February, Mr. French?
Yes, sir.
Vice Chairman Lael, myself, and County Manager Rick French attended, and there were several counties there that were being represented, and a lot of them had already filed, for their suits. So, I think it's something, as Commissioner Peel mentioned, it's a terrible thing for our county, our country, and our nation, and for our families. So, I think it's a good thing.
And one other just comment. I heard people talking about it in Raleigh, and I was like, what in the world, what are you, how can you sue? I mean, I think we all agree that there have been damages to local government, DSS, school system, Yeah, I mean, just, you know, on and on and on. Law enforcement. And all that stuff costs money. But, yeah, I'm like, how do you sue a drug company that makes pain, you know, pain medicine or whatever? Well, somebody enlightened me that the basis for the problem, or the basis for the potential lawsuit, is that drug companies were expected and required to essentially report, and, you know, and keep tabs on how much was going out and to where, and, you know, and if there was a situation where there was an excessive amount going to certain places, and what we were told and what we understand is that the drug companies did not do their part in record keeping and reporting to the federal drug, the FDA, and I assume may have been other agencies, I'm not sure. So, that's kind of the basis of this, because when I first heard about it, I was like, what in the world are they talking? That makes no sense, because why would you do that? But there may very well be a situation, and I say may very well be, and instead of saying there is, but there may be a situation where the drug companies can be held responsible for some of the financial damage that states and counties have experienced due to excessive opiate
If you
use.
can recall, well, actually I'm gonna say it's probably three years, maybe 4 years ago, we had someone give us a presentation about Wilkes County, or he had a lot of information about Wilkes County. This was just, astounding to me about the number of drugs that were being written out. And a commissioner in Macon County actually did some research, because these numbers are very hard to get hold of, but he tracked down that basically it was right at 100 pills were being distributed per year of opioids, highly addictive opioids, per person in North Carolina for every man, woman, and child. 100 pills every year. So that's, that's staggering. That's staggering, but if you're a drug company and you've got that many pills going to one state, and West Virginia's been absolutely devastated by this, so few other states. If you've got that many pills going there, there's a problem. It's not being used for just pain management. And that's another thing. If you remember a few years ago, doctors, you'd hear pain management is our, top priority, making sure that you don't have pain. Well, they were writing these prescriptions out like candy. So we've got a problem now.
Yeah. Well, and that number's astonishing too, that you said close to 100, because a lot of us don't take any.
No,
So,
exactly.
That tells you kind of what's happening there. But we've had the motion and a second. I'd entertain a vote of approval on this resolution. All with the right hand in favor. Thank you, gentlemen. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 8, our county sales tax revenue for 2017-2018 budget year. Recognize our county manager, Mr. Rick French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For 6 months of regular sales tax, we've collected $2,262,733. That is a little over 49.5% of the budget collected for 6 months. We budgeted $4,556,000. That is 4.67 ahead of last year. Under new sales tax, we've collected $724,130. That's 51.8% 0.76% of the budget collected. We budgeted $1,399,000, and it's 7.11% ahead of last year. Any questions?
Deal.
Still kind of where we're at.
Yep.
All along, so. All right. Any questions from the commission? Okay. Thank you, Mr. French.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 9, board appointments and reappointments, Council on Aging, and recognize our county manager, Mr. Rick French, once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one appointment for the Council on Aging, appoint Judy Rayo for 3 years.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion of approval. I know everyone's had that information in their packet, and, look, there's a little description in there too of who the person is, which helps me a lot most times. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
All right, have a motion to approve, have a second.
Second.
Have a second, any discussion? All right, being none, I'd entertain a vote of approval on Judy Rayo for the board appointment on Council of Aging. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, before you move to the next item, I'd like to state to Mr. Eisenhower back there, if you could, please, we moved through the Paragon piece rather quickly, and I wanted to tell Mr. Kell how much we appreciated what they're doing down there and the great things that Paragon's doing. Dr. Hefner and Ms. Mahaffey and myself, we were all part of a tour a couple years ago down there to see how they do business and the things they do. It's an amazing place, and I wanted to tell him, but we transitioned right to the next thing. But if you would let him know, we really appreciate what they do, and we're glad that they're one of our partners.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Field. All right, moving on to our next item, item number 10, is our county manager report. Recognize county manager, Mr. Rick French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the items discussed earlier was the broadband project. In your packet is a list of 6 items which we call the Alexander County Broadband Goals. And those goals are conduct Lenny Mountain's tower study, and has started. Purchase Lenny Mountain tower property, and that's ongoing. Submit an ARC grant for the Alexander County Broadband Pilot Project, and we have talked to Sherry Long with the COG, and she's looking at that. Prepare RFP to solicit broadband providers for the pilot project. We were talking with the state about that. We'll have to conduct meetings with broadband providers and also submit a grant application. So it's moving right along, so I just wanted to bring you up to date on that. A few other things, just smaller items to call to your attention. One is the 6th annual Rocky Fest event is scheduled for Saturday, April 21st at the park. And also Robin's Run is scheduled for April the 7th at Matheson Park. And I'll be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. French. And I think the broadband is going to be something that's really going to help us also.
It is.
Just as Commissioner Peel mentioned, a lot of talk about it, and a lot of people are interested in that going forward. So I think it'll be great, especially in areas of the county where don't really have it. So that'll be a good thing. Appreciate that information. Any commissioners, any questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to our adopting of the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve that. Each one's had it with time to look over it and be aware of that. Do I hear a motion of approval?
Move to approve.
Okay, have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, being none, I'd entertain a vote of approval. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. This time, I'll make a motion that we go into our closed session to adjourn into closed session under NCGS Statute 143-318.11 and for the purpose of economic development, contractual and personnel discussion, and we will reconvene, but only for the purpose of adjournment. I'd entertain a motion for closed session.
Move to approve?
Have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, will stand. Thank you, Jennifer.